Greetings unto all those who decided to watch this video. I am a self-proclaimed guru of sorts. I have dubbed myself the Brokenly-Hearted Poetic Devildog. Now, in previous videos in the past, I have discussed anywhere from anything from what grinds my gears, to tidbits of wisdom, to experiences of my life, to just ventilating, or even reading my poetry. Just varies, I guess. But in this video, I want to address three different subjects. The first being divulging a little bit about myself. The second being what is and what is not a healthy relationship. And the third subject will be a narcissistic, cannibalistic relationship and the toxic narcissist within that relationship, as well as the abuser that is emotionally and mentally abusing one in a relationship. Now, each of these subjects will blend into each other, I guess, seamlessly. Well, I guess we'll find out. So, without further ado, let's take a short intermission, and I'll be right back, and I'll give you more about these subjects. So, I'm back, and so a little bit about myself, and hopefully this will establish a repertoire. So, at some point in my life, I went ahead with a mission of trying to fix damaged and broken people that had been hurt or damaged or broken by people or life in general. And this was a noble but yet foolhardy belief and mission, because it would inevitably and eventually cause more damage to myself as well as others than it would do good. But there is also good that it did as well, so let's not chalk up all the bad stuff. So, at some point, I began trying to help people better themselves or fix damaged or broken people. But yet, in doing so over the years, I had realized a couple things. First off, I can't fix everybody. Secondly, sometimes damaged and broken people become the monsters that they hated, and they start lashing out and attacking me or people they know, unknowingly, and they won't acknowledge the fact they're doing so. Third, it is not healthy to be in a relationship with somebody who will not acknowledge this for the person who's trying to help them, nor is it actually a good idea to be the fixer for someone who is oblivious to their actions. And it also starts an internal conflict with oneself that will eventually and slowly erode away one's self-worth, emotional degradation, and cause such physical ailments in the long run. Man, it's not good, is it? So, next, we're going to talk about what is and what is not a healthy relationship. Okay? So this next subject is going to talk about what is and what is not a healthy relationship. So what is a healthy relationship? Man, that is a very broad topic, or very general topic. So a lot of people think, oh, a healthy relationship is when two people get along sympathetically and there isn't any issues. That's it? No. So in my own personal opinion, not a indefinite hardcore fact opinion. So this is a generalized opinion of my own. So a healthy relationship should consist of a few things. So let's focus on the positive right now, the pros, or what is supposed to be a relationship. Number one, open and mutually and equally honest communication that is adhered to by both individuals or partners. So the biggest key factors, you could talk to somebody, blah, 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 but are they actually adhering to what you're saying? Are they taking an accountability that you've been hurt, that you've been wrong, that you're trying to be better yourself? Or have you taken accountability that what they're saying to you is things they want you to change behavior-wise? Or is it the things they want you to change about you, or saying they don't like just because it's not their kind of cup of tea? So this all varies, and anyways, so when a person in a relationship can equally and mutually communicate with open honesty and open-mindedness, and hear to what they're saying and use it for the benefit of the relationship and to improve it, or however, that's healthy. Okay. Next up is affection. Well, this is gonna be fun. Not the birds and the bees. Let's get that straight. So the affection relationship comes in many aspects, but mostly the primary way is PDA, or intimacy. So yes, you find someone whose personality is attractive. Their body matches that personality and beauty, and you are sexually drawn to them to the point where intimacy occurs, and that intimacy occurs to the point where it is a not only on a cellular level but a emotional and physical level as well. And so you connect them and you long and yearn for the moments of hot sweaty coitus, I guess you want to call it that. However, if that starts feeling like a social security check, or if it starts feeling like an obligation, or something that just doesn't have the same oomph of emotional connection, that's not healthy. But the other side of it is, when you can have intimacy that is shared mutually and equally, and it is emotionally connecting a person to help them, or to help each other, to be very clear, then that is healthy. So, getting back to the next subject. So the other thing about a relationship, there's not a lot of complications to what is and what's not a healthy relationship, in my opinion. The next part of a relationship is paying mind to the little things. What I mean by this? The biggest thing in a relationship is paying mind to someone's, I guess, likes and dislikes. What foods they like to eat, what sweets are their favorite, what flowers or what poems or songs or what things they actually enjoy that make them happy. These things, if you pay attention to and you spontaneously throw them out in the open or do them, the little things you do for them will eventually add up to a more significant thing in the end. However, if you this is the reversal in this one. So if you take the little things of someone's past or issues and acknowledge them on a regular basis and point out that that's the reason why they're such a miserable person, or they make you miserable, no, those little things are not healthy and not kosher. Anyways, moving on. So the next thing in a relationship, in my opinion, that makes a relationship as good as anything else is understanding space and attention, and when it is and when it's not appropriate. So some people in a relationship live together, some don't, and some want space when they do live together or when they don't live together. And space is okay. But when you're sitting there texting the person every 1 second and you expect them to respond back and they don't, and when they do, it's volatile. You can see why anybody would get annoyed through 100 text messages asking, hey, what you do? But that you get that point. But the other part of this is that if you're living together and you're used to spending time together, or you set aside time together, or the person has time off work and they're at the house, but they're snubbing you, terminology yet to be copyrighted, they're on their phones playing games, messaging, Twitter, Instagramming, whatever people do on their phones today, which I don't have a cell phone, so I'm not going to claim I know. But I've seen some particular individuals do the gaming thing on a regular basis where and they're in the same room with you, but it feels like you're there and they're on some pedestal in the middle of their own cloud of disillusion and, ignorance of what you're doing and who you are. Like, there's like, oh, I acknowledge you, but they're not. That's not healthy. Now, the space, if you give someone space and you respect it and you set aside time to be together and do things, that space is healthy. But and whatnot. And the attention you give somebody, it should be to the fullest of their attention, not just half-heartedly. So, this ends this little debauchery of opinionated thoughts of what is and what is not a healthy relationship. Now on to the last and third subject, which will be a bit longer and more heavy. So, get your tissues out, your drinks, and prepare for the third subject. So this last and final subject that I want to address is in regards to the narcissist and the emotional and mental abuser. Um, Sorry, my bad. So as I've told you, in the beginning I consider myself a fixer, or I try to fix people that are broken. Now these last two subjects drag into this last and final one. So in a nutshell, in two previous things I'm going to condense down, or at least summarize. So a couple of years ago, not that long, about this many, I began dating an individual which I will, for anonymity purposes, dub her BP or bitch pudding. Just bitch pudding or BP. Now, I know it sounds like a really cruel and harsh nickname, or, alias, but I will just say this and then I'll digress back. She can be sweet, kind, and caring, and compassionate at one end, but then on the other end, she can be crass, callous, priggish, narcissistic, controlling, and downright just mean. So I combined the two, bitch pudding, because it just seemed fitting. But for short, I'll just call her BP. Any Stu, digressing back. So BP and I started dating this many years ago, and we were doing okay. We had somewhat of a decent relationship, at least I thought. But back then, I was very naive and very blind and oblivious to my own actions. But since then, as I mentioned, I got help and started becoming more self-aware. However, I was oblivious to the fact that she was a narcissist, a toxic narcissist who thrived on so many negative emotional and mental abusive tactics. And this also draws back to the first subject again, getting just slightly off topic again. I found out, maybe I mentioned this or not, I can't sorry, it's been a minute or two. I found out a really unhealthy thing about myself. I was a glutton for emotional and mental punishment due to the fact that I thought it would make me feel more alive. And so I would always take the brunt of emotional and mental abuse to the point where it was unhealthy and unsafe, and it caused physical ailments to my own health. So, now, digressing back. Now, with this being said, I remained in this unhealthy relationship, and gradually, my physical health began deteriorating because of the emotional and mental abuse that I was undertaking, or willing to go back and take, so to speak. And over time, the emotional and mental abuse and the narcissistic treatment and the toxicity of this relationship has eroded away a lot of me. And I could no longer be in this relationship, or I'm trying to get out of it, and it's somewhat difficult with little no resources or really good way of just up and leaving right away because I have nowhere to go. But that's neither here nor there. So this is the second part of this topic. I want to make people aware that when you hear the word abuser, you think physical abuser, like someone just beats the crap out of people. Well, there's the emotional and mental abusers as well. And when you think about this, you also think about, well, what kind of person would you think about? Yeah, well, if you're thinking it's a man who's the abuser, that would be the normal stereotypically belief of most people. Now, that's not always the case. Sadly enough, but it is sad to say that 9 times out of 10, the male isn't very much a physical abuser. However, women can also be an abuser as well physically, but they are more the emotional and mental abusers. It is very more true than it is fiction. And this is the relationship that I am in with BP. Now, typically it's usually a narcissist who could be the emotional and mental abuser. Now there are other ones out there, and so don't ever mistake the fact that I'm saying there aren't. Particularly, there are various types of narcissists, and there is a narcissistic personality out there as well in the mental disorder world. And these people usually become narcissists either because psychosomatic, childhood issues, relationship issues, or just in general. Now, the thing about it is, though, is that when you're in these relationships, unhealthy relationships with a narcissist, they are a narcissistic, cannibalistic relationship, so to speak. Now, I bet people are like, what is a narcissistic, cannibalistic relationship, man? Well, I will tell you. So, basically, I've meshed the words together into a narcissistic, cannibalistic relationship, but essentially, it's a narcissistic cannibal. It basically is a person who uses others for his or her own personal gain, and then abruptly ends the relationship with the person who is no longer further use to them. Basically the person can be physically or emotionally draining to be around. They're just not very nice to them, and they can take a good chunk of your life away from you. Now, again, on this subject, regards to this whole thing, a narcissistic cannibalistic relationship is just that. An individual who literally, physically and emotionally and mentally eats away at you, bit by bit, and doesn't seem to care, but they won't leave. Or they are waiting for you to leave, or they're using tactics like gaslighting, projecting, generalization, and blanket statements, and basically I can't talk now, that's weird. Devaluing your existence. They're using love bombs, and they're always nitpicking and moving the goalposts, and they're always making you feel lesser by any means possible. They're giving you destructive criticism and deconditioning you and doing all these things to keep you around. But at the same time, they're also feeding you just enough to keep you around so that way you won't leave. Oh, you do such good things for me. I mean, you're so many things are good, but all these things are bad about you. I'm gonna name them off in a laundry list. Oh, you always make me miserable. You always make me unhappy. You don't do anything right. You're always doing this and this and that to me. You're always, but it's never about how that we could change it or how we could fix it or how anything. It's always about how one of the narcissists will always point out the things that they do wrong to them, not how, oh, you make me feel like such. Can you change it? It's like, case example, BP will say things like, I don't think you understand how you make me feel. I don't think you get it is how much you make my life miserable always on a regular basis, or you always seem to make me miserable. These are examples. And I try to acknowledge these facts, but they're often disregarded. Well, and there's other phrases like, oh, you're just imagining things, or that's not how things actually are, or that's gaslighting. Now, there are variations. I'm not going to go into all of them in depth because it would take forever and a day to get through each and every one of these examples of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to stick with just the simplest nutshell variation of what I'm talking about. Okay? Thank you. Now, if you're in this sort of predicament, relationship, should I say more accurately, you need to find an outlet, a way to escape, a way to get away from it, a way to be self-aware. Now, there are thousands of videos on the internet. There is thousands of people across the nation. There are people that will help you, therapists and other individuals. But being self-aware is the first step. Coming to acknowledge the fact that you are in a abusive relationship, a narcissistic abusive relationship, or just abusive relationship. It doesn't matter what form or type. It's just not healthy. And it's hard. And one needs to leave before their physical and mental health become irreparably unfixable, and they start becoming unwittingly the monster to which hurt them. Because it can happen. If you catch yourself, and if you're able to recognize this, maybe you could turn around your fate. Or maybe you've already realized this and you've made an effort to do so. Maybe there are people out there who've already come to this conclusion. And that's good. I give you props. However, if there are people out there who are watching this and like, this sounds familiar. Or, I wonder if that's what I'm in right now. Or, wow, that sounds familiar. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a male to recognize this. This is also on both genders. I mean, narcissist is not just, oh, you're a female, you're a narcissist. Okay, that's it, a story. No, a narcissist could be male or female, young or old. Doesn't have a box to stay in. It doesn't care what color, what age, what gender, what creed, whatever else. It doesn't care if you're homosexual, a lesbian, or a straight person. It just doesn't give a shit. A narcissist is a narcissist. So, but if you're in a relationship that is a narcissistic, cannibalistic relationship, you need to know the signs. You need to be aware of what is in front of you. Because if you don't, my friends, you might wind yourself up with being, a problem. Now, I will give you 15 signs really quickly of an emotional detached relationship or a relationship that's in the rocks. Number one, your partner does no longer shares his or her problems or worries with you anymore. Now, maybe maybe the person you were with once upon a time has often shared their problems with you or just talked to you about what was going on in their daily life. But suddenly and just recently, they stopped just conveying these concerns and emotions with you. And they just, and you start feeling like more polite strangers with each other than just lovers or in a relationship. And they don't want to even talk about it. Second thing is, that comes into mind is that your partner abruptly, suddenly becomes disinterested when they're talking to you. They're just like, oh, like I was mentioning before. So another thing to mention also about this is when your partner isn't moved by your strong emotions. When you have something that's heartfelt, you're pouring yourself out, and they're just like, yeah, get it over with, and that's a red flag. Okay. Another thing to notice about a relationship that starts to make you aware is, and maybe also a narcissist, is when your partner seems apathetic during a conflict. They don't really give two rat's ass about what is really happening. They just want to make sure that you're to blame or that they're pointing out your flaws or they're just like, oh, you're the one who's wrong, and that's all there is to it. Another thing to notice too about a relationship that's deteriorating or that's unhealthy is when your partner starts to withdraw from you and doesn't want to spend any time with you. They rather flick their phone or spend time with their friends or do other things outside of work. And as I mentioned this prior hand, another thing to mention is when your partner seems disinterested in sexual intimacy, or they're not into it as much as they used to be. I mean, this could be a definite sign that they don't have the same emotions or connection they used to have with you. Yeah. And another sign is when your partner doesn't try to make you happy anymore. They stop caring about the little things, as I mentioned before. They don't do the things that used to matter to you or them. Okay. Next thing to recognize is your partner is consistently putting their needs above yours. They don't really want to pay attention to what is happening in your life. They are more focused on their own, more so than mutually like they used to. Your partner is rarely affectionate. Now, I talked about this prior as well, and I'm not talking about sexually. When they stop giving PDA or they stop looking for the things that make them happy, touching them or kissing or caressing or hugging or cuddling or whatnot. Next one is to mention is the silent treatment. They often, more times than not, will give you the silent treatment. You'll say something to them, you'll talk to them in the same room or vicinity of where you're living at, but they don't respond right away until you lash out or you make a constant statement, and then all of a sudden, oh, I heard what you said, or I couldn't hear you at all, and that's something that happens as well. And the next one is when your partner shuts down when you're trying to work on the relationship. When they start basically just shutting down and refusing to even acknowledge or wanting to work the relationship, they pretty much, that's when you should seeing the red flags. You should start, getting ready to leave. The next one, they get angry with you when you try to engage them to work on that relationship or try to fix an issue that is going on between you two. Then they start doing things to sabotage you. That's the next thing you should be concerned about. They start sabotaging you. They might try to create further distance between you by picking a fight or doing something to make you angry or upset. Or, they stop engaging or connecting with you because you're the one with issues, quote unquote. They're building walls and more and they're detaching themselves for no good reason. And then finally, another thing to mention is they stop trying to talk about the future with you. There's no more future planning. There's just like they're trying to distance themselves from you. Like every time you bring it up, we're like, okay, you know what? I just, whatever. It's there. And the last and final sign to recognize, I must say this in a respectful manner, is when your partner stops saying I love you. And more of instead of like, it's a reflex. Like, yeah, I love you too. Instead of, I love you, or I love you so much, or just whatever the phrase may be. Well, the partner's emotions and their way of saying it just like, yeah, I love you, it's a reflex. When it stops, yeah, then you should really find yourself another. But you should leave the relationship. You should just go and don't go cheat. Don't go screw. Don't go find someone else to connect with emotionally, because that just is your own devastating self-bomb of stupidity. So make that clear. Anyways, so and I'm getting into this last and final part. So this last segment, I want to talk about something in regards to this whole situation that I've been talking about, which is myself, what is and what is not a relationship, a narcissistic cannibalistic relationship, and the abuser. So, in this last and final segment, you're going to hear my final words. So, now to summarize everything. In this current relationship I am in with BP, I constantly feel like I am walking on jagged shards of shrapnel of my flaws, imperfections, inadequacies, and mistakes, as well as past and present issues, misgivings, wrongdoings, and so on and so forth. And BP, on a daily, hourly, and sometimes even minutely basis, has a really bad tendency to pick these jagged pieces of shrapnel up and jab them into me, or impale me with them, or slice at me with them. And I have come to enjoy them. And it's in order to instill the fact that I'm causing her such misery, such unhappiness. And it's not healthy, but it is what is going on. And as of recently, BP and I've come to realize that BP and I are no longer as simpatico as I would have liked, and our love is not as strong and mutually and equally shared, and our emotions and our perspectives and our understanding of each other are just obscured or skewed. And they're no longer seen as the same. And I'm hanging around for someone to acknowledge and be self-aware of their own narcissistic tendencies and their toxicity, and that is not good. And it is a really bad thing. And so now I'm having to say the hardest thing ever to somebody that I love, and realizing that my self-worth, my mental and physical health are a priority that I need to acknowledge and need bettering. And hopefully in the hopes that BP would be more conducive of understanding and empathetic to what is going on. And I hope those days are coming. But until then, I'm going to be on my own. No relationships until I know that I am better, until I am ready to face the reality that I can only do so much, and that if I feel like the next relationship that I'm in is unhealthy, or if it's toxic or narcissistic, or if I'm enjoying emotional or mental abuse too much, I need to get away. So, putting a pin in that, I want to say that if anybody has a relationship that they're in right now, this very moment, or has been ever in a relationship, that they acknowledge that they've ever had a narcissistic, cannibalistic relationship with a narcissist, toxic, or person who is just emotionally or mentally abusive, or even physical. Give your thoughts and opinions in any way, shape, or form. Just express your stories. Your survival stories are important for everybody else to know that there is a way out of said toxic, narcissistic, cannibalistic relationships, and away from abusers, physical, mental, or emotional abusers. I am a survivor of a narcissistic, cannibalistic, emotionally, and mentally abusive relationship. And I am proud of what I've overcome and what I've acknowledged. And I know that I'm not 100% blameless or guiltless. I've had my fair share of what I've done, and I acknowledge the fact that I had bad tendencies. I tried changing them, I tried making myself better, and I'm still a work in progress. So just so this video is not all about blaming the other person, I acknowledge what it is that I have done. and what I had and what I went through. Now, the self-proclaimed guru, Brokenly-Hearted Poetic Devildog, is signing off and hoping that you'll leave comments, stories in the below. Have yourself a good rest of the evening and day, and stay safe and healthy.